Leadership Preparation Webinar Series, Making Impact Through Virtual Walkthroughs, Part 1. The Office of Leadership Development and School Improvement is comprised of an executive director reporting to the assistant state superintendent, coordinators for school improvement, academic improvement, and leadership development, as well as leadership specialists. Our office has three main goals: fostering the growth of effective leaders, ensuring valid and reliable evaluations, and raising the quality of education. We provide targeted professional learning experiences and resources to equip current and future leaders with the skills and knowledge required for successful school and district leadership. We oversee the development and implementation of Maryland's teacher and principal evaluation system. Training, guidance, and support is provided to local school systems in the implementation of fair and valid evaluations. Lastly, we provide customized professional learning experiences and support informed by data and grounded in effective practices to improve school performance. To earn continuing professional development credit, in order to receive 1 credit, you must view 5 webinars, including Part 1 and Part 2. Additionally, you will complete 3 hours of experiences per webinar to include pre-work, participant guides with the webinar, and extension activities. In order to receive 2 CPD credits, you must watch all the webinars in the series, including Part 1 and Part 2. Then you will complete 3 hours of experiences per webinar to include any pre-work, participant guides with the webinar, and extension activities. In order to submit your materials, please complete the Google form found in the description below the video. For this webinar, we partnered with Brandy Sheffield, Learning Associates, LLC. She is the CEO, Executive Strategist, and Performance Coach.
In sharing expectations and logistics, we would like to ask you to remove all distractions, embrace new ideas about traditional concepts, trust the process, and commit to the work. Regarding the session materials, they may all be found on the Maryland Resource Hub. You will find this webinar, the Facilitator's Guide, the Participant's Guide, and an agenda with outcomes. In alignment with the Participant Guide, within this webinar, in the top right-hand corner of each slide, you will see PG and a number, which represents the corresponding participant guide number so that you can follow along, as well as the Professional Standards for Educational Leaders alignment. The objective of this webinar, Making Impact Through Virtual Walkthroughs, is participants will learn and practice system infrastructure and development of virtual walkthroughs in order to realize impact in student achievement growth. Part 1 of this webinar series will focus on understanding educational ecosystems and change management, and our first milestone of virtual master calendaring. Have you ever considered your school or school district as an ecosystem? The simplest definition of an ecosystem is that it is a community or a group of living organisms that live in and interact with each other in a specific environment. When you think about school systems like an ecosystem, we can begin to realize the interconnections of cause and effect on the people in the system, the impact of environmental conditions, and the interdependencies of them all on each other. Take a moment to take in this picture. Imagine this is your school district, an educational ecosystem of leaders, influencers, and staff, all seeking the same goal, to get to Wannabe Hill. Wannabe Hill represents the outcomes of a coherent and functional system that guides teams to success, meeting their goals through clear established processes and as a team. Some teams demonstrate ownership and buy-in to a set of leaders who have established clear direction and strategy. These leaders set direction and provide each person with the relevant puzzle piece to advance their practice towards the common goal. And then there is the road well traveled, where leaders fail to set direction or vision. There are no clear processes, yet teams still want to be successful. So, individuals go rogue, chart their own path down the road well traveled, and go it alone. Yet only a small few will make it beyond the traps and dangers that lie ahead. And when they do make it to Wannabe Hill, they come with baggage instead of tools and resources that will support the greater good. Other parts of the system have underdeveloped leaders who lack setting vision, direction, or creating a sense of belonging. Instead, these leaders make short-sighted plans or attempt uncharted paths without demonstrated success. There are leaders who serve as dictators, abusing the role of distributed leadership and taking credit for the work of others while diminishing their teams. This leadership style only sees self as the goal, not success for the organization, and it's evident in their actions. Some leaders create chaos and lack the emotional capacity, political stance, and relationship value to lead teams to success. And in the midst of the various types of leadership, many teams will opt out of dysfunction. Teams become disenrolled by the lack of clarity for the entire organization. They wonder why some leaders are successful, some teams are successful, and other teams poorly managed. This brings paralysis to find belonging in the ecosystem of dysfunction. Anytime an organization has chaos, dysfunction, and disjointedness, there will always be teams and individuals who go under the radar, underperform, and coast to the end of retirement, taxing the system with millions of dollars that did not produce fruit for the organization. And every organization has additional hidden challenges that threaten and weaken the foundations of the system. Outsiders who try to warn us but we turn our backs. Unspoken system fractions hidden in plain sight that we do not address. Deep cracks created by politics, economics, legal, social, and technology gaps. To address the diversity of our educational ecosystems, clear systems and instructional leadership are necessary for the shifting of any educational ecosystem. Change management addresses three elements: adapting to change, controlling change, and affecting change. In order for change to be realized, all components of change management must be intentionally planned for. Let's look at the process for change management. There are 7 components to effectively manage complex educational change. You may have seen a similar diagram of change management. We have adapted the diagram to include the crucial component of human capital. Change cannot happen without the full participation of your teams. The people in your system matter as equally to the resources, the tools, and the vision. Let's walk through the change management process to understand how each component manifests in educational change. Without an action plan, your teams will be tossed to and fro with decisions that are not aimed at the target nor defined from your vision. This creates a cycle of restarting until a detailed set of actions are defined, guiding the work of teams to progress monitor towards the vision. When teams that support the work do not have ownership, where teams take responsibility for actions and outcomes, then the group will always look to the leader with an expectation for solutions, or to have an answer for all scenarios and challenges, while holding sole accountability to the leader. Teams must be empowered through the process to accept ownership for change. The position of gaining commitment is an entry-level attribute to change that establishes trust and understanding about the vision. Without commitment, the team has not given the leader permission to lead them towards the vision, which will be faced with consistent resistance and opposition. As teams are asked to execute without adequate resources, those teams will become frustrated by their inability to make progress. This is aligned to an action plan that should identify the resources needed to achieve the task towards the vision. Incentives are evident and powerful drivers when teams can see themselves in the work or find value in the vision. Teams will passively wait for the moment or the leader to pass, or simply not opt in when incentives are absent. Incentives can represent new learning for advancement or alignment to their values and skills. but there has to be an attribute, a reason, or a cause for teams to see themselves in the work. In the absence of teams not possessing the skills to accomplish the vision, teams are trepidatious about being successful in the work. Opportunities to learn, practice, and deepen practice must be present to thwart anxiety-driven participation, which will lead to opting out of new systems changes. And finally, without the anchor of vision, teams will operate in confusion and lean on their own rationale or values to attempt tasks. When teams operate under different directions, confusion, chaos, and dysfunction thrives. Take this moment to reflect on your leadership in the participant guide. Respond to the leadership reflection prompt. This will support you to intentionally plan to use your assets and develop your growth areas to strengthen as a change management leader. The foundation of school improvement is the mindset of the leader. In the introduction, we introduced educational ecosystems to open the leader's mind to the multiple functions of a school system, providing an opportunity to reflect on the leader's past and current experiences and leadership position. Aligned with the reflection of ecosystems, we walked leaders through change management to bridge connections to the shifts in leadership actions that produce change, impact, and prepare the school to create sustainable structures for scalable achievement. If the leader does not have the disposition or mindset to take on this work, then leadership coaching can support a leader to implement these processes. In the concepts of this webinar, the leader must display a school improvement mindset of belief and unwavering high expectations with support to establish quick wins, build momentum, and then scale to impact. The FSG Social Impact Advisors offer this statement regarding school turnaround. Turnaround is a dramatic and comprehensive intervention in a low-performing school that produces significant gains in achievement within 2 years and readies the school for the larger process of transformation into a high-performance organization. Further, they extend the statement to include, based on our analysis, we would add to the definition those efforts that take place in the context of performance improvement for the school system as a whole. You do not have to be a turnaround school for this statement to be applicable. If your school needs any level of improvement, such as subgroup student achievement or student culture improvement, then this definition is applicable for your context. Looking more deeply at the school level, the first attribute is to measure student outcomes and improvements in the school culture and learning environment. This means to have clear systems of goal setting, progress monitoring, and supporting or developing the structures and people toward a common and measurable goal. Later in this webinar, you will be supported with explicit processes for accomplishing this in virtual walkthroughs. Next is employ absolute and value-added measurements. By absolute, this means they're non-negotiable. They've been vetted for validity, and the analysis of the measurements provide data results towards the targets. To be value-added means that the measurements are useful. The measures and the data used must be for reflection, for improvement, and provide feedback that is a resource that makes an impact on planning and implementation. In short, the measurements must be useful for the system, not only the leader. Third, the leader must set the bar high for success. Let's process this simple statement. When we set targets too low, we communicate disbelief in the ability of the system. Remember, the system also includes teachers and students. So think about what we're saying about the people in the building when we set targets too low. To the converse, when we set targets that are unrealistically high, as leaders, we are displaying a lack of relatability to the work. Targets should be seen as a stretch goal. By determining a comfortable target and then stretching just beyond that, strikes a balance of encouragement, belief, support, and high expectations. All of this aligns to the vision that is established for a school, departments, grade levels, staff, and students. Of all the attributes of school level improvement, the final statement is a key driver. Strive for meaningful improvements within 2 to 3 years. First, recall the turnaround definition, that the leader produces significant gains within 2 years and readies the school for the longer process of transformation into a high-performance organization. When the leader uses the attributes of change management, staff who are ready to change will excel. Staff who are on the fence will be won over by the gains. And the quick wins established by the school will begin the process for scaling the systems to all classrooms. This is what is meant by readies the school for a longer process. A leader must also uncover the structural barriers within the system. This might be reluctant teachers who need to be evaluated out of the system, not just your school, or antiquated textbooks, but no resources to purchase new ones, so your staff would need time to update the curriculum at the school level, or any other structural barriers. It should be noted, however, that to begin, the first wave of significant improvement should be within the first 2 to 3 years at maximum. Students only get one chance, the grade level they're in, to make improvement. Students cannot wait 5 to 10 years for a school to improve. A leader must establish quick wins demonstrated in student and teacher success immediately. As you refine and shape your leadership mindset, use these tenets as a foundational frame for this webinar. The content of virtual walkthrough may be new or familiar, but the contents absolutely require a leader's mindset that applies the 4 attributes of school level improvement. Now that you have been exposed to the leadership impact within educational ecosystems and reflected on your capacity in change management, let's look at how to establish clear systems and instructional leadership to shift an educational ecosystem by designing virtual walkthroughs for impact. Let's pause so that you can read this 3-part quote. As you ponder on this quote from Peter Drucker regarding leaders being prisoners of events without action plans, use the exercises within this webinar to intentionally plan your actions for the context of your school site to conduct virtual walkthroughs for impact. Here's a snapshot of the final product you will create in the first part of your system. This is an elementary calendar. You'll notice it is color-coded to highlight instructional tasks and actions the leader must prioritize in their calendar to conduct effective virtual walkthroughs. An organized calendar system allows a leader to prioritize their actions to the goals of the school. Here's a sample of a secondary calendar. You'll notice the similarities in the 2 calendars, with small variances to reflect the context at the grade levels. Let's begin planning. As you move into designing your calendar, select color coding for categories of work that are aligned to your instructional leadership. While the colors are independent choice, the categories listed are crucial in your planning. These leadership actions and tasks ensure that the leader is designing and protecting the right time. You will plan your non-negotiable meetings, meetings led by the principal, classroom observations, face-to-face teacher feedback, when grade level or content teams meet, when you need to hold space for culture, and your own leadership work time. In the participant guide, you will find a sample calendar template. Additionally, there is an electronic template in the Maryland Resource Hub that is hyperlinked to update your master calendar and course schedules. Take a moment to look at each and decide which format is best for you. Getting started with designing your master schedule, you must know when your teachers are teaching to create this schedule. For example's sake, we will use this time structure assuming that teachers are conducting instruction every hour on the half hour. If your school schedule has alternative time structures, such as minimum days, then update your time structure to reflect your actual school hours. Next, input the non-negotiable meetings you must attend. When inputting the teacher's virtual classroom times, also identify the teacher's planning time. This will be the leader's opportunity to meet with the teachers to provide feedback after the observation. Identify when the leader meets with team collaborations and site professional development. These are meetings the leader leads or must be an active participant within. Protecting your planning and work time will also be crucial. Without designating blocks of time, as a leader, you may find yourself willing to skip observations or other important instructional leadership actions that will cause you to miss your target goals of student achievement. Once you have all of your instructional actions scheduled, next begin to input the additional actions and activities of school leadership, such as your culture activities. This schedule represents the intentional instructional leadership as a baseline for establishing virtual walkthroughs. There may be empty spaces in your schedule because this schedule is not intended to list every action that must happen on a campus. A leader should be building the capacity of others to distribute leadership. This schedule is also a communication tool to all of your teachers and staff on the priorities of your time. Your schedule should not be broken, but for extreme emergencies, not urgencies. Leaders will need to put a process in place that helps the office staff to protect your time and schedule around these protected times. Implementing and sticking to your calendar is a skill. It requires the finesse of communication with your staff and parents to clearly bring everyone to an understanding of your priorities of student achievement. Being transparent that setting student achievement as a priority means that you commit to spending the majority of your time on actions that make improvement in total student achievement, such as classroom observations, teacher feedback meetings, planning professional learning, delivering professional learning, and the actions of developing the capacity of your team. Clarity and transparency that you will be available for all emergencies but may not be available for most urgencies is also important in your communication about your schedule. As such, having school processes to support the non-instructional needs of staff and parents is also needed. Those structures might include, but they're not limited to, preparing and practicing with your front office staff on how to respond to parents and teachers who request your time when you're not available, so that their actions continue to build a supportive and inclusive culture. Allowing your front office staff to schedule other requested meetings for you with clear structures for transition time to and from the meeting. Establishing a first line of defense protocol for student behaviors and teacher urgencies. And communicating your schedule to your community of parents and staff as well as your supervisor. The more you communicate with transparency and bring people to the understanding of your daily leadership actions for student achievement and ready your school with processes to communicate with you, then the more supportive your community will be of your calendar times and respect your structure instead of pushing back on it. As you begin to design your master calendar, utilize these inquiry reflection prompts in your participant guide for the context of your school. Reflecting on change management, what are the incentives for teachers to be flexible with scheduling virtual instruction, preparation, and collaboration time? What vision will you communicate to establish the commitment of teachers in scheduling virtual instruction that will enable your instructional leadership to effectively monitor virtual instruction and provide feedback towards the school's goals?
The Office of Leadership Development and School Improvement would like to thank you for participating in the Leadership Preparation virtual webinar series. We hope you found this particular webinar informative and beneficial to your work as you prepare as a leader. To access the webinar series and find additional resources, please visit the Maryland Resource Hub. The Maryland Resource Hub can be located at marylandresourcehub.com. That is MARYLAND LandrourCehub.com. We appreciate your feedback and would ask that you take a moment at this time to complete the SurveyMonkey link or use the QR code. The feedback that you provide to us will inform our work in the office as we develop additional resources to support you in the field. Again, thank you very much for your time in completing the feedback. As a reminder, the continuing professional development credits are available to you for this leadership preparation webinar series. To receive 1 credit, you will need to view 5 webinars, parts 1 and 2, and complete 3 hours of experience for the webinar. That would include the pre-work, viewing the webinar, and completing the participant's guide, as well as extension activities related to the webinar. To receive 2 CPD credits, you will watch all 10 webinars, parts 1 and 2, and complete 3 hours of experience per webinar. Again, it would include the pre-work, viewing the webinar and completing the participant's guide while watching, and extension activities related to the webinar. After you have completed the work, you will then submit all of the materials to the Google Form link listed. If you need to contact us with any questions for any reason at the Office of Leadership Development and School Improvement, you can contact Ed Mitzel, Executive Director, at edmund.mitzel@maryland.gov. That is edmund.mitzel@maryland.gov. Or Dr. Lori Ellis, Coordinator for Leadership Development, at lori.ellis@maryland.gov. That is lori.ellis@maryland.gov.